Hey, okay. I'm not nervous. All right, well, I want to thank each and every one of you for attending our online performance of After Action Review. Tonight, you were here from seven different veterans, seven different monologues written by each veteran from different branches of the military. And like he said, my name is Judy Welch. I am the program coordinator for Veterans Empowerment Theater. I have been working with this organization now for 5 years. 5 years. Oh my gosh. Yes. I have done several performances, and I am just really excited to continue on working with veterans and just trying to be an inspiration, not just to veterans, but to veterans' families and everything as well. And this monologue program, we started, I say, about a month and a half ago, and we cannot get into our Blue Door Theater. So we decided to just continue on with our programs, but they're virtual. But we're still able, everyone is still able to be a part of and express themselves. And that's what this program is all about, Veterans Empowerment Theater. Okay, so feel free to write anything in the chat. We'd love to see and hear what your opinions are and what you have to say. Okay, so all right, I need everybody to mute themselves, put yourself on mute as we are about to begin. Okay, so tonight, like I said, we'll have seven different monologues, and I am going first. I am your first performer for tonight, and my monologue is titled Just Laugh. I needed that. You see, I'm tired of hearing the sadness and sorrow in people's voices. I'm tired of seeing the tears of our mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters. We all can see that this entire world is suffering from some form of hopelessness and emptiness. We can all hear, see, and read about the devastation that is ripping families apart. We can all see and hear the cries of our neighbors. We see strangers lost walking the streets with nowhere to go. We hear and watch news reporters from around the world day in and day out talking about the anxiety, the agony, and the bitterness of their people. Yes, people are in distress. Yes, people are panicking and feeling the urgency to want to get back to what they consider a normal life. Yes, we all know depression is real. Yes, we all know the death of a loved one hurts to the core of our being. Yes, life does throw curveballs, but it's up to you how you catch them. Never allow the circumstance to take over you. You take over the circumstance. So, to all mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, it is time to get rid of the unduly catastrophic thoughts that are keeping you down. It is time to take a deep breath and just laugh. Just laugh as loud as you can. It is time we turn those tears of sorrow into tears of joy. It is time we wake up feeling grateful and just laugh instead of waking up depressed and wanting to cry. It is time to feel the love from within and not the hate. It is time to grab the joy and release the sorrow. Let it all go. Laughter starts from within your soul. Laughter gives you hope. Laughter gives you peace. Laughter brings about positive thoughts and memories. A positive mind cannot hold negative thoughts. A positive attitude will increase your altitude. A positive life is a long lasting life. So just laugh. Some people, they've been down and out so long, they just forgot how to laugh. So I encourage you to just sit and listen to music that motivates you. Was or is your favorite song? Play a game with your loved ones. Hug your spouse and children. Play with your dog and cat. Count the stars in the midnight sky. Laugh when you feel the need to cuss. Call a longtime friend or family member and tell them how much you love and miss them. People should want to help others to regain and retain their joy. Help someone laugh. Be so happy that when others look at you, they become happy too. When you see a person without a smile, give them one of yours. When you brighten their day, you also brighten yours. Don't let the curveballs of life strike you out. Just laugh, because there is power in laughter. Thank you. I had to write that because I, as we all see and hear the devastation of everything that's going on in the world, we need to laugh, people. So that's why I wrote, just laugh, because we all need to laugh. And I hope at the end, everybody take a good laugh. Thank you. Up next, coming up next, we have Gwen Laree. Gwen is a Desert Storm era Marine Corps veteran. During her service, she acquired Persian Gulf syndrome, which took her from the public eye for over 20 years. Now, she runs an alpaca rescue and retirement farm north of Portland, Oregon, while also pursuing her dream career as an actress in Los Angeles. Her monologue is, Why the Tattoos? Go ahead, Gwen.
Thank you. I'm glad you like them. I did it as a memorial to my husband who passed away from esophageal cancer. Rick loved life. He started the Salem, Oregon Drum Circle, which is where we met. But if you asked him what he did, he'd tell you, I make people smile. He never defined himself by his job, but Rick honestly believed that his purpose was to make people happier. So he did that every day. When Rick died in 2012, I was lost. I had no idea what to do. And then I met this tattoo artist, Josh, who would mix Rick's ashes in with the ink. And all of this gave me something to focus on. The dragon is for my spirit, for my ability to carry on, and reminds me that I'm stronger than I think I am. The lovers were the love that Rick and I shared, but also how important partnership is. We added teacher, seeker, and inspiration because that's who Rick was and how he lived his life. He loved teaching people to hand drum, but he also loved learning about their lives. So I chose the rose for that beautiful fragility and how precious each moment is. The dragonfly is all the festivals that we did together. We did Fairy Worlds, a bunch of pirate festivals, and Oregon Country Fair every year. And no matter where we went, these dragonflies would just appear and they made it feel magical. The wings are my history and all of the things I've overcome and all of the things I've learned. And then Josh, oh, the eagle was my very first tattoo from when I was in the Marine Corps. And so it was there, but Josh made it look brand new again. And then he pulled everything together with the shading and the flowers, but he really wanted to do something on the back of my hand. Now, you choose, whatever you want to do. So Josh chose the cosmos. Sorry about the picture. And he said he chose that for my future and to remind me that I'm beautiful too. There's 40 hours of work here, which took months. And while we were still working together, I met my current husband, Mac. And crazy enough that I'm doing this huge memorial to my dead husband, but I also come with a rather large service dog named Simba, who is my constant companion. I didn't think there was any way we would make this work, but Mac was a trooper. He and Simba became best friends. And I think Simba actually appreciated having the help keeping track of me. So before Mac and I got married, I had one final touch up with Josh, and Mac came with me and stayed with me. And we were just getting ready to leave. And Josh looked at me and said, "No, get back in the chair." Okay. And he went to the lovers, and the male lover had long brown hair, the way Rick wore his. And Josh changed it to the short, curly black hair so he looked like Mac. And he said, "Okay, that's my wedding present. Now you guys can get married." We did. Simba carried the rings in our wedding ceremony. He was so nervous, but he did a great job. Simba always did a great job. And he died in 2019. So there is one more addition we're going to do to this. Right here is where Simba's paw print will go. And yeah, we're going to mix the ashes in there too. Thank you.
Oh, Gwen, that was really nice. Hold on 1 second. Okay, there we go. All right, that was really nice, very enjoyable. So tell me, what did you enjoy about the workshop?
My favorite part of the workshop was this whole process and the amazing conversations that we were able to have, how much we learned from each other, especially coming from so many different eras. It was really mind opening.
Well, I thank you so much. You were a delight. Okay, now, next we have Joshua Epstein. Josh is the latest in the line of service dating back to 1636. He enlisted in the Army and served with the 82nd Airborne out of Fort Bragg. He is loyal to one thing above all else, and that is the American dream. Josh's monologue tonight is titled Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Go ahead, Josh. Unmute yourself.
I grew up on stories of heroes told to me by my own personal heroes. My family has protected this country since before it was a country. We fought in the French and Indian Wars, we fought in the Revolution, and on both sides of the Civil War. All of my grandparents served in World War II. One grandfather built the Enterprise, and the other fought under Patton. One grandmother served as a drill instructor for the WAC, and the other kept records for an admiral. Both of my parents served in the Army during the Cold War, one with the Signal Corps in Germany, and the other as an MP at Fort Leavenworth. And they taught me to read using comics. I grew up believing with all my heart in truth, justice, and the American way. Heroes like Captain America, Superman, Sergeant Fury, and the Howling Commandos. I thought that the truth was what I'd read in history books in school. I thought that justice was always served to those who did wrong. And I thought that the American way was us riding in like John Wayne cowboys to save the day, and that everyone loved us for it. I was only 3 months into my freshman year of college when my father called to wake me up out of a sound sleep just in time to watch the second plane hit the World Trade Center. I'd heard my grandparents' stories about Pearl Harbor all my life. I told my mother I was going down to the closest enlistment station instead of class. But strangely, she told me to wait. We don't know, my mom said, what this is all about. So I watched the news, I saw body bags coming home, and I stewed. So when I ran out of money for college 2 years later, I decided to join anyway. I thought that I was signing up to be a defender of truth. The Army values include integrity, after all. Then I went to basic and I realized that the truth was that half the people I was serving with had been lied to by their recruiters, not just about their benefits or what job they were signing up to do, but the fact that there was even a war on. They got their news from ESPN and they had no idea. All recruiters lie was so common that it was considered a joke. I thought I'd signed up to be a defender of justice. Then I watched as a drill sergeant who'd raped one of my fellow trainees lost his stripes but stayed in uniform. I actually ran into him a few years later at Fort Hood and he had his stripes back. And still, I thought the American way meant we were the good guys. Then I began to hear stories from friends who'd been deployed to Afghanistan about how they'd watched C-130s operated by one of the various alphabet agencies, airlifting load after load from the poppy fields that they and their fellow soldiers had been tasked to guard. It wasn't long after that that the US fell into the worst opioid epidemic in the nation's history. Still, I wanted to believe. So when the Army gave me the chance to go back to college, I held out hope that I could somehow be a force for change in the system. I still wanted to be all that I could be, so I took class after class on international relations, terrorism, and genocide, and it was in those classes that I learned how we'd used the Mujahideen, taught them insurgent tactics to fight the Russians, and then abandoned them to the Taliban when they'd served our purpose. I found out that the same people we'd trained to be freedom fighters took that training and used it against us, and that now we called them terrorists. Today, even though I know the real truth, that America has failed to uphold justice, and that the American way has been one of exploitation and deceit, I still believe in the American dream. I believe that we are all created equal and that we are all endowed by our Creator with the inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I believe that we can reshape the American way into one that serves truth, that brings justice, and makes the American dream one we can all believe in. Thank you.
Oh, very good, Josh. Thank you so much. Very powerful, as someone is saying. Now, what inspired you to write your monologue?
So originally I was going to do something very different.
Yes.
And I was actually inspired by some of the conversations within this group over the last month or so. I think that there is a very common misconception about my generation and the generation after that we don't love this country, and we do. We just love it like an old house that needs repairs. And the first thing you have to do when you're starting renovations is be honest about what's broken.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good, Mr. President. Okay, coming up next is Lester Probst. Les is an Army veteran where he trained with the Airborne Rangers in 1953 and served in Korea. He is a retired computer executive and now fledgling playwright. This is Les' second time performing with Veterans Empowerment Theater. Patriotism, the better ism, is the title of his monologue. Take it away, Les.
Today, we are told that our country is split in half and someone or something has to bring us together again. A leading politician recently stated that an entire generation of Americans has come of age and has never seen American prosperity. How can that be when we all live in the most privileged of times in the most prosperous nation of all? Only 43% of the nations in the world are free. The US poverty line begins 31 times above the global average. Last month, over 100,000 people crossed our borders at great risk to experience our prosperity. Anyone can cross our borders and go from rags to riches, just like the founders of Google, Amazon, and many others. They have that chance because our capitalistic system is the only one where the building blocks of an economy are owned by individuals and not by the state. I was born between World War I and World War II, and everywhere that I turned, I saw patriotism. In 1918, my German American father enlisted in the Army at age 16, and he followed his brother who joined the Navy a year before. Uncle Jim, an Irish American, got his Purple Heart in a bloody trench in France. And Uncle Louis fought alongside the Allied nations in the Italian army. Years later, when he came to America, he married my very Jewish aunt and taught her how to cook the very best Italian food. When Pearl Harbor hit early Sunday morning in December of 1941, these same men, they ran down to the New York City recruiting station to join up. My West Point cousin died commanding a PT boat in the Pacific. And 10 years later, my 6'2" California surfer cousin was the only Marine in his platoon not killed or wounded in Korea. A year later, I took my turn on the Korean DMZ. In 2014, I joined Hollywood Post 43 of the American Legion because of its historical significance and its many educational activities. The American Legion was formed over 100 years ago to assist the thousands of US soldiers who returned from World War I. Many of these men were wounded both physically or mentally. To fulfill its mission, the American Legion created 4 major programs, or pillars as they called them, with the hope that future wars would be avoided. These programs were Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation, under which the Veterans Administration and the GI Bill for Advanced Education were created. The second was National Security, where the American Legion partners with Congress and the Pentagon to maintain a strong military force. The third was the Americanism pillar, which consists of programs such as the oratorical contest, This keeps our Constitution alive in the hearts and minds of young people. Boys and Girls State teaches civics to young people at a historic site. Here they participate in simulated city, county, and state governments and learn the rights, privileges, and responsibilities of being an American citizen. The last of the four pillars was children and youth. This creates healthy and wholesome programs for younger children. In addition, at every monthly meeting throughout the nation, local high school ROT students, policemen, firemen, and first responders are honored by our members. Today, I see the average person driven by emotion, or better yet, by their feelings. Science, mathematics, and economics seem to have been replaced by feelings. Just listen to Judge Judy when she tells the litigant, I don't care how you feel, it's the law. The dictionary defines patriotism as a love for devotion to one's country. I suggest that patriotism is the ultimate in feelings. Is it national unity, as in united we stand, or a belief in religion? Or perhaps it is a belief in American exceptionalism. Most Americans believe in American exceptionalism because hundreds of thousands of Americans of every race, religion, and ethnic background travel to other countries to defend freedom. But it's not just our armies that do good for humanity. There's also our Peace Corps, which has helped countless numbers of people around the world that are in need. Furthermore, let's note how American companies developed the COVID-19 vaccine in record time and then supplied that vaccine to so many countries. Yes, today it's true that too many Americans are unaware of America's story. And it's also true that something has gotten out of control with capitalism. It needs to be fixed. But do you know that our founders actually thought of that by forming our government as a republic? Because a republic requires constant maintenance by the people. But we have to be careful that we fix it properly and not try to replace it with some form of socialism that benefits only the state and very few privileged people. Therefore, I propose that something to unite us is patriotism. I believe we can start on that path of healing by using patriotism as the fuel that propels a nationwide grassroots movement. And the engine to use that fuel should be the American Legion's 12,000 local posts, working in partnership with the U.S. Department of Education in conjunction with local school boards, chambers of commerce, and the like. I have been reaching out to all levels of the American Legion, the University of Arizona's Civic Department, education think tanks, and the Richard Dreyfuss Civics Initiation here in LA. Yes, Richard Dreyfuss himself has been giving speeches on returning civics to our schools for many years. I trust my talk tonight will inspire all of you, especially parents of young children who believe, as so many of us do, that it's an urgent need today to make this country better able to serve all its people. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. That was awesome. Now, my question for you is, how did your military experience affect your current life?
Well, at the age of 17, I went to Syracuse University as a pre-med student. I didn't take school very seriously, and 2 years later, I found myself on the DMZ in Korea. I wrote a letter a few days later from a bunker on the DMZ begging NYU to take me into their engineering school. because I know that I knew at that time that education was only the salvation for me and others in the future.
Very good. Thank you so much for being a part of the program.
Well,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, up next, we have Irene Cruz. Irene served in the Marines as a communications technician during the Cold War. She is a Chicago native. In 2015, she was the first woman named Veteran of the Year for LA County. This is her fourth stage performance with Veterans Empowerment Theater. She is also a writer, an actress, an up-and-coming comedian, well, not up-and-coming because she's been out there performing, and public speaker. Her title is To Be or Not to Be. Take it away, Irene.
To be or not to be. Growing up, these words did not necessarily resonate with me, but I heard them when I was a little girl listening to vinyl records my mother had purchased. The stories of Alice in Wonderland, Cinderella, Snow White, and Robin Hood filled early Saturday mornings and allowed me to access the part of my brain that controls imagination. You can Google it later. You see, listening to those records over and over did not get boring because I also listened to Ozzie Davis and Ruby Dee read children's stories on the radio, and I learned to visualize the characters looking slightly different each time. The color of their clothing, the time of year. I mean, no one ever said the Tea Party could not have been in the wintertime or even at Miami Beach. Even their skin and fur was something I could see in my head. Over time, these words have been repeated and they have somehow stuck in the back of my mind. But I would like to touch on something that happened recently that brought those words to be or not to be home for me. And I'd like to share that with you. Those of you who really know me know I will bring up topics for people to have tough conversations. Before I go on, I just want to say thank you, Madam Judy, for your recommendation to the firm that I be chosen to report on this topic. You see, this is so perfect. I recently found out that 12% of my DNA comes from across the pond. As most of you have either seen or heard about the interview that Oprah gave with Meghan and Harry. Now, before I start, please do not turn your ears off. I want you to know that I've tested this topic and it was greeted with a lot of uproar, even before I finished my thought. Which led me to conclude that people will assume they know what I'm going to say. But I assure you, you have no idea what will come out of my mouth next. What I would like to talk about is Harry. So wipe your slate clean and picture this. Now, if you followed Meghan and Harry's story, once they were married, there were issues that arose, such as race, etc. Lots of people have spoken about that, and whether or not you believe her is certainly not the point of my chat with you. Something I took away from the interview was the fact that Harry came to a realization that what his wife was going through was the same thing his mother went through. Remember, Harry was young, and a lot of people tend to think that young children are not paying attention to conversations you're having and are not watching things that adults are doing. But I assure you they are. Harry may still have a lot of his mother's influence in him because of his age at the time of her passing. But he grew up, joined the military, is well-traveled, and was involved in numerous humanitarian projects. Then on that awful day, we heard stories of Princess Diana feeling isolated. While watching the interview, I thought about what Harry might be struggling with. In dealing with what now his wife was also going through, I'm pretty sure Harry came to the realization that this was the same thing that his mother went through. Then there was the realization that his father was there and did not help his mother. His family did not help his mother either. It must have felt like his family was ousting him for doing what the story said his father did. Marry for love. But hindsight leads us to wonder, did Harry's father actually marry for love? Because we found out that Prince Charles was having a long-term affair with Camilla. That's another story. During the interview, Harry mentioned that he tried different approaches. Nothing worked. When Harry spoke up on behalf of his wife, his family cut him off financially. He even said something to the effect of, "I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have my mother's inheritance." So ask yourself, why was Harry being cut off? He was a member of the royal family, a part of the firm, a loyal employee of the institution. Why was his security being taken away? Why was he and his family being told that they had to live on the outskirts of the castle with no security and become an open target for anyone? Now, Harry must have realized that they could have all been killed, including Archie, if he went along with that twisted logic. Was this all because he was speaking up for love? Think of what makes sense. Prince Charles wasn't cut off because he married a woman outside of the institution. I'm just saying. I say, though, that Harry took a stand as a man and protected his family. He did what he saw was the best option given the circumstances that he found himself in. Was it the option that he wanted? No, he said so himself. But he made the best choice for him and his family. Someone commented, he's turning his back on his family and everything that he grew up believing and trained for his entire life, not to mention the privilege that being an employee of the institution granted him. I beg to differ and challenge that he did not turn his back on everything he was taught. All that Harry has gone through, all that he has witnessed, all that he has prepared and trained for is what made him the man he is today. All of those things are what gave him the belief and conviction to do what he felt was right. So in conclusion, I like to say, to all of the women that have possibly been abused by one man, partner, lover, and you were able to get away and find another man who you thought would keep you safe and who you could be your most vulnerable with without the fear of this new man taking advantage and possibly abusing you again. Wouldn't you want a man like Harry? A man who's strong, wise, caring, gentle to his woman, and would protect her to the end. I say yes to Harry. So in my opinion, it is not whether you believe Meghan or not, but do you believe Harry? You see, Harry must have felt that there was something wrong. He took a stand to do what was right for himself, his heart, his family, and especially his love. So whether or not you believe Meghan is inconsequential to me, I believe Harry. Thank you. And please continue this conversation at your leisure. Good night. Cheers.
Awesome, Irene. Oh my goodness, you are always controversial, but that is okay. That's who you are, like you said. Okay, now tell me
Yes.
what inspired you to join the program?
Well, actually, it was you, Judy. You told me there's a wonderful program out there that allows veterans to express themselves in their own words. And being in a room full of veterans, I know there's going to not be any judgment. Sometimes it takes us a little while. Some of us suffer from PTSD. It takes us a little while. We gotta, hey, I'm Army, I'm Navy, I'm Air Force, I'm a Marine. So, we go through that and then everybody's cool. And so it's been wonderful. And I've been here ever since. And I've actually been trying to recruit some people in my family who are veterans to attend the next class. So thank you. This pivot was actually very good because some people were really worried because we couldn't actually go into the theater and do a live production, but I think this is just as good.
Awesome. And just so everyone would know, you will be running the comedy workshop coming up soon. Everyone will get information about that. Thank you, Irene. You're always a blessing.
Oh, yes, that'll be me and your girl Peaches.
All right. Thank you. Now we have Elaine Little. Elaine is an Army veteran who served in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, Bosnia, and Afghanistan. She writes short stories, essays, teleplays, and screenplays. Her monologue is, "It was a joke." Take it away.
Thank you. Field Station Kania, mid-80s. My entire company gathers in the auditorium. An NCO is performing the thankless task of presenting the annual Prevention of Sexual Harassment class. I was a depressed film major spit out of college at the height of a recession. My twisted trajectory had landed me here, an Army specialist stationed in Hawaii. I'm intrigued as the VCR fires up and the video lurches onto the screen. The dialogue sounds like it was recorded in a public restroom. A low buzz humming under the soundtrack doesn't help. A series of disjointed scenarios unfold. My film school brain is working overtime critiquing the aim and shoot school of cinematography. Minimal editing, if any, every flubbed line preserved. Actors? What actors? The participants smirk their way through their lines while staring at the camera. First scene, interior, office, day. Male soldiers are working when an attractive woman saunters by. They catcall, "Woo-hoo, I'd like to get a piece of that, woo-hoo." The video identifies objectionable behavior like lip smacking, lip licking, eye rolling, and nonverbal sexual come-ons. For example, a series of syllables with a specific intonation that conveys female sexual desirability. Next scene, a woman in the very sexy Class B uniform, polyester skirt, green button-down shirt, and 2-inch heels is leered at in the dining facility. She is so rattled, she almost drops her tray. Third scene, the harassers are now the harassed. "Look at the buns on that one," says a female NCO as she flirtatiously traces her index finger down his abdomen, stopping just north of his belt. Cut. The NCO bounds up to the podium. "So, what did we all see today?" he asks. "Bad acting," somebody cracks. In many ways, the Army was a toxic waste dump of unhealthy relationships, outmoded sexual mores, and sexual objectification. Sex was something to snicker about. The jokes were usually bad, but you had to laugh. If you didn't, it was your fault for not having a sense of humor, not their fault for telling an unfunny joke. A sergeant in my section demonstrated his sexual technique by getting down on the floor in the plank position. What I do is I lower myself like I'm doing a push-up onto my girlfriend. This was his first post-divorce relationship. His ex-wife was a girl he had met in his Pennsylvania high school, who he had 2 kids with. She cut her hair after the divorce. He said it made her look like a lesbian. Lately, he had been dating an 18-year-old blonde Canadian tourist he had run into while bar hopping in Honolulu. Well, picked up. We're in love, he said. In our advanced individualized training, our platoon sergeant picked his new wife from the fresh-faced crop of young female soldiers. She couldn't have been more than 20, and he was in his late 30s. It was his second marriage, or maybe his third. This wasn't considered predatory or weird. He was just lucky. My name tag, Little, positioned over my then tiny chest, was occasion for derision, but never to my face. I had a friend who told me that he just thought I should know. My panty lines were pointed out by male platoon sergeants at uniform inspections more than once. I read the manual on uniform wear, and I don't remember that passage. When I told a male soldier I was being transferred, he said he would miss seeing my butt in my BDUs. Thanks, I said as I slinked off using a folder to cover my ass, all the while thinking, does my butt really look good in these BDUs? A hardness and unapproachability was a handy way of deflecting unwanted male attention. This worked sometimes, but it didn't take much for a girl to acquire a reputation. It was strange to me that some of the nicest girls were labeled as sluts. They didn't disparage or gossip about any of the guys they dated. They just dated and trusted too many. Women were not always allies to other women. You were supposed to be a big girl who didn't complain when things didn't go her way, even if the thing was technically an assault. I was complicit. I wanted to be the type of girl who could get along with the guys without a hint of prudery. Is it any wonder that when I watched the Anita Hill hearings in the early 90s, my reaction was not sympathetic? Not that I didn't believe her. I did. After she related the perfectly plausible story about the pubic hair on the Coke can, I was hurled back to a workplace where that would have been considered a comedic slam dunk. But I thought she was nuts to even bring that up. Didn't she realize this was just the way things were? Because you see, to me, it was just another day at the office. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Wow. Now, my question to you is, what did you enjoy about the workshop?
Well, I love reading aloud, and especially my own work. So I like expressing myself in that fashion. And so that's my most enjoyable thing I took away from it. And also the fact that if you are in these workshops, you're sort of compelled to create. You know, it's like you can't just sit there and think, I'm going to think of some last minute. You better start going to work right away.
Yes, yes, yes. And I truly enjoyed you and everyone else. Okay, thank you once again. Now, our last performer for tonight is Medic Mark Keiko. Major Mark Keiko is still serving in the Army Reserve, working as a labor and delivery nurse in San Diego. He has been in the reserve now for 29 years. He is also an inspiring voiceover artist, and the title of his monologue is Ciao. Take it away, Mark.
Thank you. 1995, I was stationed in Heidelberg, Germany, and I met a girl. She was brown like me, and even though I didn't speak much German and she didn't speak much English, my high school Spanish bridged the gap with her Brazilian Portuguese. Thanks, Mr. Jimenez. We fell in love. At least I did. Picnics, dinner, dancing in an exotic city with a beautiful girlfriend. It was intoxicating. We even lived together for a bit. But of course, there was a problem. There always is. She was divorced from a German guy with 2 small children. And since I had 2 half-brothers roughly the same age, I kidded myself into thinking this could work out. I naively wanted her to come back to the United States with me so that we could go to school. And yeah, right, nope. So when the Army asked me towards the end of my tour if I wanted to extend 1 more year in Germany, I said no, even though I knew it would hurt. It was for the best. I PCS'd back to California. Fort Irwin's not so bad when you're from San Diego. A few months later, I flew her out to California so she could see my world, San Diego, LA, Vegas. But we were on borrowed time, and I knew it. Eventually, we drifted and broke up. I was crushed. The next year, I received a Christmas card from her, and her last name was different, and she had an APO, a military post office box. I was crushed again. But life goes on. I finished school, got my commission as a 2nd lieutenant, and had other adventures. Fast forward 7 years later, 2004, the Army Reserves asks me if I want to go to Germany for annual training. I ask where, and they say Heidelberg. So of course I said yes. Some of my buddies wanted to go on the 2nd group 3 weeks later, but I said no, because I didn't want to rock the boat with the admin guys. So about 7 of us left February 2004 for 3 weeks in Germany. On the way over, I told my team that we'd have a blast because I knew some German and spoke and knew the city and spoke some German. We got there day 1 and did some paperwork, got our apartments, and on the Army bus ride to the commissary, I chatted with a lady who had just arrived. And I told her what a wonderful, romantic city Heidelberg was and that she'd have a great time there. We went into town and I showed them downtown Heidelberg, Bismarckplatz, the Hauptstrasse, the old bridge. I pointed out restaurants and clubs and coffee shops where we used to go. And one of my sergeants said, "Hey, LT, you're chasing a lot of ghosts, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, I guess so." The next day we start our jobs and I had a short walk from Army base housing on Patrick Henry Village. On the way to work, I saw a small Ford Fiesta, white, 4 doors. And it looked a lot like the one that she and I picked out 7 years ago. The next day, on my walk to work, I noticed the same car. And while I'm thinking about it, an NCO comes for my 9 o'clock and salutes me, saying good morning. And I say, "Hey, what's up?" And I return the salute. And behind him is her. I am shocked. She looked at me and said in that musical Brazilian accent, "Mark, what are you doing here?" And she walked up to me and gave me a hug. I said, "The Army sent me here for some training." And after a few moments, I saw a little boy, about 3 years old. And she said, "This is my son, Thomas. And this is my husband, Brian." He was already by the white Ford Fiesta, ready to go. He said, "Hey." And I said, "Hey." Awkward. Then she said, "Okay, we have to go now. It was so nice to see you. You have to come by for dinner. Ciao, ciao." And they got in the car and left. I saw a lady with a baby stroller walking by and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, I don't mean to bother you, but something really crazy just happened. I just bumped into my ex-girlfriend who I hadn't seen in 7 years with her husband and her kid, and just, is this really happening?" I said dramatically. And she said, "Yeah, this is really happening. Crazy. And isn't it funny that you bumped into me?" And I said, "I'm sorry?" And she said, "I'm the lady from the bus. You're here back from San Diego with your reservists, and you told me how romantic this city is." And I said, "Oh, right. Oh, thanks. Have a nice day. So I went to work. I told my OIC what happened, and she said, do not go back there. I do not need an incident. So after work, I went back there. I knocked on the door. She opened the door, looked at me and said, hi, Mark. I thought I was dreaming. I said, me too. And she said, come in. So I went inside and we talked. She said, Mark, when I drove my husband to work, he was very quiet. He did not say anything. When I dropped him off, I began talking to the air and to myself. And I said, how can this be? Why is Mark here? This is incredible. And my son, Thomas, in the back seat said, Mommy, are you talking to me? Mark, do you know what the first thing I did was? And I said, no. She said, I called Brazil. And I spoke with my sister, Marasi. Do you remember her? And I said, of course I do. I said to her, Mark, I said to her, Marasi, you won't believe who I just saw. And she yelled, Mark, you saw Mark, didn't you? And I said to her, yes, how did you know? And she said, I always knew you would see him again someday. Marasi always liked you. She sends hugs and kisses. She then told me that sometimes she tried to find me on the computer, on the internet, and that her husband would see my name and that it would make him mad and they would argue. And I told her I did the same thing, trying to find her sometimes. She also mentioned that they were going to PCS, move, in about a month. So if I had gone 3 weeks later with my buddies, I wouldn't have seen her. She then said, Mark, do you remember your promise? And I said, what promise? And she said, you did say to me, Marley, come with me to San Diego. I will finish college. I will get my commission and promotion, and I will go back to Germany. Mark, I always believed you would be successful, but I never believed you would come back to Germany. Now I believe you. It was bizarre, surreal, a bit nauseating, but I'm glad it happened. So we both could properly say, ciao. Thank you.
Whew. Mark, I know in rehearsals we were talking, oh my goodness, that's such a powerful love story. But you are happily married with two kids, so that's good. Yes. So tell me, what inspired you to join our program?
Well, I'm an aspiring voice actor, trying to get into audiobooks and narration and voiceover. And then I saw on Facebook your group, or the event rather, on the veterans and media and entertainment. And I just took a swing and just messaged you and said, hey, what's this all about?
Well, I am so glad you did. Now, what I would like to do is have all the performers show themselves, come out, unmute and show yourself. Okay, when they all come out, we just want to say, okay. All right, everybody. I just want to say thank you to our listening audience. Thank you for logging in and watching us perform our monologues. We would not be able to do this if it wasn't for Arts Up LA, Veterans Empowerment Theater. Like I said, I have been involved with them for 5 years. And it is such a wonderful organization to be a part of. We help vets to heal. Actually, in our rehearsals and everything, when we are at the Blue Door putting on productions, we come together, just vets, just us, and we're helping each other to heal and go through the things that we have encountered while serving in the military. And not just serving in the military, but the things that we go through. Some people are suffering from PTSD, and it's a wonder. It is just wonderful that Arts Up LA allows us vets to come together and do such marvelous work. And I would like, if any of you are vets out there and you want to get involved, or if you just need some information about all the other many programs that ArtsLA do, please visit us on our website, www.artsla.org. I believe I said that right. Yes, www.artsla.org. We are just doing whatever we can to help just so many different communities. And sometimes it is a struggle for us to do the things that we need to do without the donations. So I encourage every one of our listeners to donate something. There's nothing too small and nothing too large. We are always forever grateful, and it's donations that keep us going. It is your donations that keep inspiring us and inspiring me to go out there and look for other veterans to do what you just saw here. So I really thank each and every one of you for attending After Action Revue. Thank you so much. Again, if you want to donate, please go to www.artsupla.org. We need your participation with your finances. Thank you, and everyone have a beautiful and blessed night.
I think if everyone wants to turn their video on and unmute themselves, we should give these actors a huge round of applause and let them hear us. Let them hear your support. Great work, everybody. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Oh my God.
Yay. Congrats, y'all.
Congrats,
Mom. Love you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so
Great job. Great job.
Hey, Chris,